Hello Toy Collector fans, Universal Toy Collector here and welcome to the channel. And welcome to another episode of My Collecting Life, the weekly series where I get to chat with you, members of the toy collecting community, about your own personal collections. Finding out what got you into collecting in the first place and what gives you that toy collecting buzz. Okie dokie then. So the question on everybody's lips is, who is this week's guest? Well, why don't we all find out? Sit yourselves down, put your feet up, and let's take a look at some of his collection in a musical montage. Alrighty then, what an absolutely outstanding collection. And I noticed some sports memorabilia there as well. Absolutely fantastic stuff. It is a pleasure to welcome to the channel for the first time, Mr. Eric Brown. Hello, sir. How are you?
Doing great. How are you?
Awesome. Not too bad. Not too bad. Right. So we're saying, like in the green room, you know a little bit about the series. So basically, I've got 10 questions for you, all about you and your collection. Run time roughly about an hour. If we go over, not too much of a problem. So when you're ready, sir, we'll crack on with the first question.
Yeah, hit me with your best shot.
Oh, well, okay, here we go. What toy lines were you into as a kid, and what memories do you have of those toy lines?
Oh, so for context, I'm 36. I was born in 87. So I'm more or less a 90s kid. However, I did kind of grow up with some of the stuff from like the mid and late 80s. My my primary lines collecting, like, or just playing with toys as a kid, always Star Wars, but I didn't get Star Wars toys until the Power of the Force 2 line came out in the mid 90s. So
Okay,
those
yeah.
weren't like the first toys I played with. I loved Star Wars, and I like my earliest memories of watching Star Wars were maybe in preschool and like 1990, 91 and whatnot. But I never like didn't have any Star Wars toys, didn't get like any of the vintage Kenner stuff. So I have zero attachment to any of the vintage Kenner stuff.
Yeah.
The Power of the Force 2, the like buff figures, those were my Star Wars toys, but I don't even really care about those that much because they were, like inaccurate and whatnot.
Yeah.
They look goofy. But so when I was maybe a bit younger, this more of the toy lines I collected, I had to take some notes on this because there were just so many different things that I played with. Like I had
Okay.
the X-Men figures, like a
Okay,
lot
yeah.
of the Toy Biz stuff, and Spider-Man, 'cause they had the cartoon series when I was a kid. Swamp Thing was huge. I have this as like a desk toy. This was one of my favorites. I
Oh,
love
wow.
the Swamp Thing stuff. Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, that was pretty big.
Yeah. I wasn't I loved playing with Transformers, but Beast Wars was my jam.
Okay.
I loved playing with Beast Wars. Those were just like those were just real fun to play with and mess around with. Real Ghostbusters, Power Rangers was huge.
Yeah.
Power Rangers came out in '92 when I was in kindergarten. So all my friends that I made when I started school,
Yeah.
everyone was into Power Rangers. There was Bucky O'Hare, if anyone remembers that.
I remember Bucky O'Hare. Yeah.
Yeah. This is going back Batman, the animated series. I loved all that.
Yeah, that was
stuff.
superb. I like that. Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, Street Sharks. Those were really cool. I loved playing with Street
Vaguely
Sharks.
remember hearing about those.
Yeah.
Wow.
They were like big, oversized anthropomorphic like sharks that you could like chomp stuff with. They were fun. Biker Mice from Mars.
Yeah, I remember them as well.
Gargoyles.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then,
I'm watching those currently on Disney Plus at the moment. I'm just on season 2.
I need to go and rewatch that because I loved that series when that came out. 2 toy lines I'm about to mention that were severely underrated, I think, for people my age group. Crash Test Dummies. There was a cartoon for that. The toys were so much fun to they have the cars that you crash and like pieces fly out and like the heads kind of explode or like parts of that was really cool. And then Earthworm Jim, that was a lot of fun.
I've not heard of that one.
Yeah, there was like a video game that came out with it too.
But
I was big, like I liked other things other than like action figures. Like there were these things called Pogs, these circular discs that you kind of like throw and
we had them. Yeah.
There was that, and then card games. There was that, I can't remember the name of it, the Star Wars card game that was around in the 90s. Magic the Gathering. I loved playing Magic like in the late 90s, early 2000s, and then Pokemon cards came out like right at the tail end of when I was still playing with toys. But video games became really big. So like with a lot of people my age, I think like I feel like my generation was probably the last to like really still play with action figures, but also be just as big into video games. I don't know. That may not be true, but that's at least how I feel. But that's a lot of stuff. But yeah, go ahead.
Because in the 80s, it was or the late 80s, early 90s, it was the Nintendo system that come out. So we had it, and I played it around a friend's house at the weekend and stuff like that. So I didn't spend hours on it because we were then still pretty much into playing with our action figures. And it's interesting you saying that about the toy lines you had, because I'm a little bit older than you, so by the time so like the mid 90s, Power of the Force figures had come out, I kind of stopped playing with the toys and not collecting them. I did start collecting Power of the Force when they came out because it was obviously new Star Wars. But for me, I always thought that it was just the Turtles and the Power Rangers that were the pretty big toy lines.
Those were big
back then, after like what I would say was a pretty big era for toys like Motu, Star Wars, Transformers, and G.I. Joe. So it's interesting to hear your take on that, because you grew up in that era where it was Turtles and
Yeah.
And
So
like,
there was a lot of stuff. Like I had a lot of things from a lot of different lines, but yeah,
yeah,
definitely um, Power Rangers were really big for a few years in the early,
yeah.
from like 92 to whenever the movie came out. And then it kind of died off with people my age. And then, yeah, Turtles and Power Rangers were still pretty big.
I mean,
Things,
those two toy
yeah.
lines themselves are pretty huge toy lines,
Oh
aren't
yeah.
they? They've got
Oh yeah.
so many different variations of the figures from different companies and stuff like that, and it's just a lot to collect. And there's well, two toy lines that I've never really sort of like been brave enough to dip my toe into because it would just get out of hand real quick.
Yeah, I just out of pure nostalgia, I went for some of the Power Rangers Lightning collection, like the 30th anniversary, just for the original. Just
Okay,
that's all I got, just because I was like, oh man, I love that original series from '92. But aside from that, I can't remember watching any other series. That having the mechs, or they're called the Zords, that would have been cool. That like if I still had those, but God only knows where those ended up in some dumpster,
yeah,
like 30 years ago or however
yeah.
long.
I mean, it's interesting as well when you say about Beast Wars, because that was a line that I never got
Oh
into. I
yeah,
never really saw the animated series because after Transformers G1, I was kind of done with
yeah,
that kind of
yeah.
thing. So it's interesting to hear you say about Beast Wars.
I thought that the show, like, I don't think it holds up that well nowadays, because the animation, uh, style just, it could be so much better
Yeah,
done nowadays. But at the time, I think that 3D animation was really um, innovative, and
yeah,
that just blew my mind away. There were shows like that and Reboot that were just like, oh my god, what am I seeing, compared to the other kind of cartoon shows. But yeah, Beast Wars, I feel like if you weren't like around, like if you weren't a kid at that time, you probably wouldn't have been that interested in it. But
yeah.
yeah.
What about G.I. Joe? Because I mean, that went on until the
Mm.
sort of like was it like the just late 80s,
Or
early 90s?
GI Joe was around in the, yeah, up until like the early 90s, but like none of my friends had anything with GI Joe. Maybe we had some maybe some people had older brothers that had GI Joe and Motu, but
Yeah,
no one in my age group had anything GI Joe. It was all like X-Men, Spider-Man, and Turtles, and Power Rangers primarily. Yeah.
yeah. And what about morning TV, Saturday morning TV, and after school
Yeah.
TV? You know, because you're saying about the
Mhm.
X-Men cartoon, you're saying about the
Oh
Batman the
yeah.
animated series, and the Gargoyles. How influential were those sort of like series? I mean, was it the series that you saw first, or the toys that you saw first?
Um, that's a good question. I don't think I can really remember if I got in. I want to say I probably watched the cartoons first, and that's what got me into the
Yeah,
toys, because I'd be at the store with parents or grandparents and be like, "Oh, I saw this on TV. Get me a toy." Actually, I've got one of these guys. My grandma
okay.
got me this at the local Toys R Us. Um, because I was being such a pest about saying, "Oh God, I love the X-Men." It's not the right Wolverine costume from the show, but
Yeah.
it's so cool that like the claws
Let
retract
me just
and
get
come
let's
out,
just
and yeah,
make you larger there. Oh
yeah.
wow, look
So
at
it's
that.
got some defects, or like rub paint and whatnot. But this was mine
Yeah.
from a kid. Yeah. So
Wow.
yeah, good memories with this guy. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're redoing the X-Men 97, aren't they? Or they're
Yeah,
they're
I think
going to be
it's
coming
coming
out.
out later this month, right?
Yeah, yeah, I think so. Yeah. I mean, you excited for it?
Yeah, of course. I love that show. I remember I wasn't always able to watch every episode, and I didn't always get them taped. So I don't think I ever ended up watching every episode of the entire series up until it launched on Disney Plus however
Okay.
many
Yeah.
years ago. So that
Yeah.
was cool to watch the original series start to finish, because I feel like I missed certain things because we didn't have DVRs in the early early 90s and whatnot.
Yeah.
You could VCR things and time them, but like I had asked my parents to help out with that, and they couldn't be bothered. So
when you go back and watch those kind of animated series, like for example, Gargoyles or X-Men, you're an adult now. You go back and watch them. Do you find they're quite cheesy? Because I know from my experience of going back and watching some of the original G1 Transformers, and especially the Motu cartoon, and some of the G.I. Joe stuff, I'm like, wow, that was pretty cheesy, as an adult. But as a kid, it was just absolutely amazing.
Some of it may not hold up for whatever reason, whether it's dialogue or content and whatnot. But I love watching all that stuff, and I'll probably have my I have a young daughter now, and she'll probably be exposed to that as well as any other future kids I have. They'll be consuming that, all the stuff that Dad watched as a kid. So.
Awesome stuff. So what was your favorite toy line as a kid, and why? Or did it change? Did you go through phases? You're into one thing 1 minute, then the next thing would come out and you jump onto that? So is that how it worked?
Yeah. I think initially my overall favorite toy lines were, like, at one point it was Ninja Turtles, but then the Swamp Thing cartoon came out, and I had like nearly every figure and playset and vehicle from this line, and this was my favorite, Swamp Thing. Up until the Star Wars stuff came out, I mentioned like I don't really care that much for the Power of the Force 2, the buff figures and whatnot nowadays. But when I was a Star Wars fan, from probably the like age of 3 or 4, and when those figures came out, nothing else could compete with Star Wars after that. When the Star Wars figures were coming in the mid to late 90s, and then leading up into Episode 1, nothing could compete really for my attention, other than maybe video games.
Yeah. I find that interesting. I really do, because you say that you're into Star Wars from quite a young age, but at that age you didn't really have
toys.
Sort of like toys to play with, because by that time I guess Star Wars would pretty much move from the stores, didn't it? And it was sort of scattered about here and everywhere.
Yeah, it was the Dark Ages pretty much. Or when I was a kid, I'd read some of the the Legends novels, specifically more the young adult stuff, like the Young Jedi Knights series. I'd read a lot of those books, and I'd look at like the visual dictionaries, and that's how I stayed up to date, and Star Wars Insider. And in fact, like when my family first got a computer that had internet access, the only website I could think about going to was StarWars.com. I like my brain as like an 8-year-old, or right, I couldn't think of any other possible website to go to other than Star Wars. I just wanted to know about Star Wars. So I was like, when the special editions came out, that was my first time being able to go in the theater and see the films.
How was that as an experience for you?
Nothing could compare. I mean, I know they were like different, and they're people who are want to preserve film history and the originals, and like fully supportive of doing that, but nothing could compare to that kind of experience of being able to see Star Wars in the theaters for the first time. So that was cool.
That'd be pretty amazing, because I was too young to go and see Star Wars. I can't remember seeing Empire, so Return of the Jedi in '83 would have been the first time I'd experienced it. But to see all 3 of those films for the first time on the big screen, that must have been something else. Because I know you guys in the States, you have make a big thing of it, don't you? It's like an event. So you dress up and cosplay and take lightsabers, and just it must have been an awesome experience, especially for a kid.
Yeah, I don't, over by me, I don't remember much of that kind of stuff, but I was expecting that type of experience going up to see the Phantom Menace, and I was like, I know that day, and I'll remember that day for the rest of my life. May 19th, 1999, because it was the day Phantom Menace came out, but it was also the day I was moving back to my hometown after living in a different place for a few years. So being able to reunite with my friends and whatnot, that was a big thing. So like my dad took my brother and I to see the Phantom Menace. He's like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna go see the movie." There are gonna be lines around. We're not gonna have a chance to see it. Everyone's gonna be like waving their lightsabers, and it's gonna be a bad experience and whatnot in the theater. We walked into some matinee. There was like maybe a handful of other parties in the theater, and I'm like, this is opening day for the Phantom Menace. How are we here? How is it not like I couldn't understand how the entire world didn't stop turning just to see the Phantom Menace in this one theater in the northern suburbs of Chicago. Yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
When did you stop playing with your toys, and when did you become a collector?
Yeah. I probably stopped playing with I never really stopped playing video games, but I stopped playing with like action figures probably when I started high school. So that like that was what 2001 no 2000 fall of 2001. I don't remember playing with action figures after that because I was playing sports and doing other things. So when I started collecting, I don't think I got back into it until after I got married. So maybe like late 2016, early 2017.
Okay.
I remember having a conversation when my collection started picking up. I was getting, some of this stuff like the role play items from Hasbro for like Marvel Legends and Star Wars. And my wife's like, I didn't know you were into this. I said, well, like I suckered you in and now you're stuck with me. Yeah.
But I mean, is she cool with it?
She tolerates it to a certain extent.
I mean, she must tolerate it a lot for you to have it in the front room there. Is that the front room you're in, I guess? Or?
This is my basement. So
wow. Okay.
Yeah. Most of my collection is around the corner with all the Star Wars stuff. This just happens to be where my desk is.
I've got to say, I'm so envious of you guys having basements out there. Absolutely. Some of them, but they just look incredible. And if I had a basement, I'd be the happiest man ever. I really would. I'd be like so happy. Oh, but yeah. So I mean, with your collecting, then I see that you also into like sports sort of like memorabilia. So what was it about the sports memorabilia that got you interested in collecting some of that as well?
I inherited a lot of that stuff from my stepdad. So I've got like a signed picture of Mike Ditko, who's the former coach of the Chicago Bears, was coach for the '85 Bears that won the Super Bowl. Like flicking off the camera, and signed Walter Payton football. What else? Michael Jordan basketball and Bobby Knight for my university, Indiana University basketball. I don't know. I like sports, and I don't know. I like to show off my fandom in general. So like anything I like to have some representation of who I am or like what I like. It's just I tend to wear my heart on my sleeve, so you can easily figure out what I'm into.
That's nothing wrong with that. So obviously you're like you're Chicago Bulls fan then. So for the NFL, yeah. I mean, we were talking off there, weren't we? And we were saying about your love for Manchester United, or your following of Man United.
It's a love.
You just want to go into that quickly and explain why you follow Man United?
Well, as a kid in the '90s, it's I have to be honest. There's some like affinity toward the most successful team at the time when you're a kid, right? But going back on my dad's side of family from Salford originally, so it was pretty much like, well, best team or club, and some familial connection back in the day. So it was it was an easy choice, and for me, it was also an easy choice because like as a Chicagoan, I feel like in the Midwest, we're kind of overlooked in this kind of area of the country for a lot of things, and I feel like there's a natural kind of affinity toward the north of England.
Okay.
So
okay.
just like
And when
more
they come out and
blue
tour,
collar.
when they tour the states and stuff like that, do you ever get to go out and see them play? Have you seen them play?
Yeah, I've
have?
seen him. Yeah, I've seen him play a few times. I got to meet a lot of the players and whatnot. I got a bunch of signatures and whatnot. One time I was pitch side, which this was, I can't remember what year, but I was pitch side for the United and PSG game at Soldier Field, and I waved over Ryan Giggs and got to have a quick chat, and that was real cool.
Wow.
Got him to sign my shirt and whatnot. That was yeah, that was good. And yeah, I remember I was walking. This was a previous tour. At one point, I was just walking in downtown Chicago. Like I was living in downtown Chicago at the time, and I was just walking along the street, and I see Albert Morgan, the Kit Man, just doing some touristy stuff, and I pull him over, and he was just so surprised that some American would recognize the Kit Man.
Oh wow!
So I got some pictures with him. Oh yeah. So that was pretty cool experience. Yeah.
Awesome stuff. So where would you rate then? So you've got NFL, which I quite like watching the NFL.
Do you have a team?
Seattle Sounders, not Seattle Seahawks.
Seahawks. Okay.
So yeah. So and Sounders are my
MLS team.
MLS team. Yeah, but I've also got an affection for Cleveland Browns, because I've got relatives that are out in Ohio. So
sure.
But yeah. But I mean, we experienced a game over here at Twickenham.
Okay.
And it was I can't remember who it was. New York were playing, New York Giants, and Odell Beckham Jr. was playing for them at that time. Was it LA? Did he play for LA?
I can't remember where he went after playing for the Giants, but he played for the Browns at one point.
He played for the Browns, yeah. But we saw a game, and I loved it. Absolutely fantastic experience. Really enjoyed it. So you've got NLF, you've got MLS, and you've got Premier League. What are those? Where do they come in your ratings?
So
I know where MLS is going to come.
MLS is rock bottom, probably like not even on my radar for something I'd probably want to watch. Although I did get tickets when David Beckham signed for the Galaxy. I went to see him when they played the Chicago Fire. So I was in college that time, and I drove back home to Chicago to be able to see Becks. So that was cool. But so United is definitely top for me. But the Bears I have a love-hate relationship with, because we're just perpetually mediocre. And the team is owned by a bunch of buffoons and managed by a bunch of buffoons. And I'm hopeful for the future, but yeah, in any case, the Bears are up there. They always will be, but probably NFL, and then NHL, ice hockey would probably be next. Next, followed by NBA and then college sports. So
MLS is right at the bottom of that pile. Wow.
Oh yeah. Baseball. Baseball is interesting too, because I love going to games, but I can't watch it on TV. It's too boring.
Yeah.
I'd rather watch golf on TV than baseball. And that says a lot.
Wow. Wow. We'll move on. Blimey. What toy lines do you currently collect?
Okay. Well, primarily the Black Series.
Yep.
I do have TVC for vehicles and some other kind of sets. Like I got the Jabba's throne room and whatnot. I like to decorate that. Other than that, like I love the role play items, so the helmets and lightsabers are. Oh, I love the lightsabers. They're expensive, but they're really underrated.
Which ones do you have? Which ones are they? What make are
they? Which one? The easier question would be which ones I don't have. And I honestly, I don't think I ever got the Kit Fisto one that Hasbro made a few years ago. Other than that, I think I've got them all. Wow. But yeah, see, I always, as a kid, Luke was my favorite. Luke was my favorite human. Chewie's my favorite character overall. But I always wanted Luke's lightsaber, and one Christmas my mom got me it was like the cheapo plastic lightsaber that like the plastic telescoping kind of flashlight thing. So I always wanted that, and to be able to see what they can make now with like the LED effects and whatnot. I know there are like more fancy NeoPixel lightsabers that may be cheaper, more expensive, depending on where you get them from, and maybe more customizable. The Hasbro stuff, I think they knock it out of the park for the price point. I'm sure a lot of people disagree with that because they are expensive, but for me, like to have a lightsaber, that was a dream as a kid.
So with the Hasbro ones, then you turn them on. Do they constantly make a whirring sound, or can you just have the light on the blade on?
No, the sound effects are on at all times. Yeah.
I've got the same with the Legacy lightsabers. I love them when they're on, but I can't have them on too long because it's just a constant whirring, and it's like, I can't listen to that.
I have them mounted on my wall, and I turn them on if I'm just walking around the basement. But I can't have them on at all times. Just it'll drain the battery, and
it's a shame they didn't put a volume on them, really, because then it would have been good to have as a display piece and have them lit up, but you didn't have to listen to the noise all the time, you know?
Good feedback for the Hasbro team if you're listening.
yeah. I doubt it. So you're more into Black Series then than you are TVC.
Yes.
Is there any particular reason for that at all?
A few reasons. One, I think my first Black Series figure was the first Chewbacca that they put out. And I remember going down the toy aisle at Target or wherever I was, and I saw that. I mean, I walked past. I didn't go into the toy aisle because I can't remember, up until that point, I can't remember going down a toy aisle. But I saw a bigger action figure of Chewbacca, and I said, "Oh my God, what is this? How did I not have something like this as a kid?" To me, the Black Series and the 6-inch scale in general is just like it fits about the same as like a 3 3/4 figure in like a kid's hand, but it's so much more detailed, more articulated. In general, I just feel like it's a better toy. I mean, unfortunately, you get less of the world building stuff with vehicles and playsets and whatnot. But for me, I saw those Black Series figures, and I haven't stopped buying.
Yeah, I mean, from myself personally, I used to collect a lot of the Black Series figures, but I've sort of cut back down on them now, mainly because of price. But I'm also into TVC as well. And speaking from a TVC point of things, I'm quite envious of the Black Series because of the figures that you are getting out. You know, you've had your Baylan Skoll, you've had your Shin Hati, even though the sizes were completely wrong. You've had your full quota of Bad Batch figures out from season 1, and it's the same with the Rebels crew as well. You've had the full Rebels crew out, pretty much round about the time Rebels was out.
And it goes the same way with original trilogy Aliens, right? For me, I grew up with the original trilogy first, and to not be able to get Jabba's entourage and all the Cantina aliens and whatnot. That in Black Series, that to me is like a travesty. So Black Series are looking at TVC and saying, why can't we get some of that too? So it's
well, I suppose it swings around about it. You're looking at, but I guess it's both. But I mean, you've got that Doc Ondar figure now, haven't you? So he's obviously going to be pretty much Hammerhead
Mhm.
at some
Yep.
point down the line. You know, it'd be silly if they didn't. But
no, they pipelined
yeah.
him. He's going to come. Yeah, it's just a matter of when.
And you've also got the Black Series helmets as well that I've noticed in your pictures that you sent over.
Yeah.
I mean, wow, some of those are absolutely tremendous, aren't they?
Yeah, I can't help myself when I see a lot of these things, because these things would have blown my mind to have as a kid. And that's just, sometimes the cost is a tough pill to swallow with some of this stuff, but it's just like, I need to have that, because like younger Eric would be kicking older Eric right now if he didn't jump at the chance to have something like that. And
yeah, you say you don't. I mean, because you said previously that you got into Star Wars at quite an early age, and you've got no connection with the original Kenner figures. Is there no thought process at all that you might want to get into collecting those at some point, or are they just totally off the charts for you that you're not going to bother?
For me, there's no need. It would be. I mean, if I was given them for free, so if anyone has any that they want to give me, by all means, but I'm not going out of my way just because it wasn't my thing. I didn't. They were before my time. Not that I don't appreciate them for what they were and how they influenced, like toy collecting and youth kind of culture and playing with toys and pop culture in general. Not that they don't have their place in the, in history, but it's just not for me.
No, fair enough. And what about the Phantom Menace figures and the Power of the Force 2 figures? Do you still have those from your childhood?
Most of them, yeah. I don't have them displayed. Some of them I actually have in the Falcon behind me, but I hope to replace those with better TVC figures from the original trilogy, should they actually make them. I'm sure they will. It's just a matter of time. Most of them are in bins in my storage room.
Okay. Well, I mean, for as much as that people were moaning about that line, saying that they're too buff and this, that, and the other, they did bring out some figures that weren't previously seen in the Kenner line, which that wasn't bad going. They did a Grand Moff Tarkin. They did all sorts of different aliens and stuff.
Yeah,
we never got in the original Kenner line.
And I've they may not be the best kind of figures when you're looking back nowadays, but I have great memories of being able to go to the various stores, and there's just like an entire aisle is consumed with pegs filled with different figures. You had your pick of what you wanted, and those days are gone, I fear. So that was the last time I really remember making an event out of getting toys. And when the Phantom Menace came out, that was just something special. I remember going to the FAO Schwartz on Michigan Avenue in Chicago for all the Phantom Menace toys, and they had like a life-size Darth Vader that had the chest piece all lit up and whatnot. They had all sorts of different things, and coming home with all those toys, that was something special. Being that I was that kid that was like going on StarWars.com every day to see whatever kind of like update from the set, because they would like show like behind the scenes streams of what was going on the set from time to time. I'd stay in tune with that, and that was something else.
Awesome. And I just want to touch on something else that you mentioned as well. You were saying about, you could go into a store and there'll be an aisle of Star Wars figures or whatever, and those days are gone now. It was like that in the 80s as well. So, I mean, you could walk in, just tons of stuff. You had sport for choice, and those days are gone. I'm just interested to hear from you, and why do you think that is?
I have to believe that part of it is down to kids today, just in general, probably aren't into buying and playing with toys, right? I think the kind of culture from the 80s and even into the 90s of having cartoons that were intended to help sell merchandise.
Yeah.
That kind of thing has shifted, and I think video games are more video games and probably social media for uh, um, unfortunately are more dominant. I love video games, but the unfortunate thing was more the social media stuff.
You're saying about like the animated series to help sell the toys. I mean, they've done an updated Master of the Universe with Revelation, then Revolution. Then you've not so long recently had the Transformers Warp Cybertron.
But those weren't targeted to kids. I felt those were targeted to adults who wanted that nostalgia hit, right? So I don't think that dynamic's going to shift back in the way of having kids playing with toys like this.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to have like preschool kids playing with like Bluey toys or Frozen princesses and whatnot, but like action figures like this, I think those days are numbered, unfortunately.
So even with big blockbuster films like like the Marvel movies and stuff like that. I mean, and the Transformers Rise of the Beasts movie. Do you think that they don't really sort of add to sell into the toys, or
they obviously sell toys, and I'm sure there are plenty of kids that have toys from them, but I don't think they have the same kind of draw or sell in the same kind of volumes that they used to nowadays. Maybe it's hard to gauge that because you'd have so much online retail, right? So like you don't know. It's hard to see what like Amazon is doing and whatnot. But it'll be interesting to see how this is progressing as my daughter gets older, to see what she's really into. But I hope she's into all the stuff I like. Because I actually there's the Young Jedi Adventures series on Disney Plus. So like I bought every toy from this line.
Wow, it's the first time I've seen
Nubs.
These.
This is Nubs. Nubs is the bestest little Jedi. He's voiced by the same guy who does all the clones. D. Bradley Baker does the voice of Nubs. But it's a great show. My daughter loves watching it, probably more because of the colors than realizing what's in it. But I got her all the toys so that when she is a bit older, we can play Star Wars together. And around the corner, I've got like a play tent of the Millennium Falcon cockpit that we can go in and play read and whatnot. Wow. So yeah.
What about Resistance? Because that seems to get overlooked. I mean, that was pretty much aimed at kids as well, wasn't it? That
I think so. Yeah. I think that show was underrated. I
Oh, you're gone on mute.
Sorry, did I lose you?
Yeah. Sorry, I can edit that bit out.
So
you're saying about it being underrated?
Yeah, Resistance I feel like was underrated, but I think that's probably a product of it taking place in the sequel timeline, and there's a lot of fair and also unfair criticism of the sequels, and it's not everyone's kind of thing. So yeah, I don't think it lived long enough as a series to really take off and develop an audience with younger kids. But yeah, I think they had some toys, but again, I'm not sure kids, even if they watched it, would be interested in the toys.
Yeah. That's a shame. It's just interesting to hear, because you've got a young family yourself, and you wanted to get involved in it and stuff like that. And so I mean, basically Star Wars is for kids, isn't it? I mean, that's what George Lucas had said all along, and and someone else has said it as well, that Star Wars is for everybody. I mean, people might not agree with that, but it is. I mean, I've got my preferences. But I'm an older generation.
Everyone has their own preferences. Yeah, sure.
Absolutely. Do you have a sentimental piece or a prized piece within your collection?
Yeah.
You want to take a guess as to what it is based on all the pictures I sent? I know there was a lot.
It was a lot. Oh, crikey. Sentimental piece. I'm going to go off on a limb here and say it's going to be something to do with sports memorabilia.
No, actually, no. So, but thanks for playing along, and sorry for putting you on the spot. But
That's
it was a wedding gift from my wife.
Oh wow.
Well, wedding / Christmas gift. It was kind of jammed in together. But I have a signed picture of Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, and Peter Mayhew from Empire Strikes Back.
Wow.
So,
wow.
Yeah, my wife and I got married at Disney World, and in the Hollywood studios.
I'm not going to let my wife watch this episode. She'll be, I want to get married at Disney World. But
yeah. So in the store outside of the Star Tours attraction, behind the register, they had, signed pictures from, like individual actors that ranged in like popularity and whatnot. But the big one was that one. And I'm like, oh my God, Lisa, it would be amazing if it had that in the house. That'd be a holy grail. And she ended up getting it and having it shipped to our house and surprised me for Christmas shortly after our wedding. So and I got that. So that was Christmas 2016. That was 2 days before Carrie Fisher passed. So that I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. So,
saying about that, we were at Celebration in London in 2016, and we got to meet Carrie Fisher. We had a photograph taken with her, and got her autograph and stuff like that. And I've got to say, I was proper gutted when I heard that she'd had a heart attack on the plane on the way back and then passed away. Proper gutted.
So did you get to meet Gary, her French bulldog?
I don't think he was there the day we went to go. Well, if he was, he was down below, but we didn't get to see him. Yeah.
Oh yeah, this is a cute dog.
Oh yeah, he was But wow. Just going back, I don't want to know too much of the details, but how was that as an experience getting married at Disney? Is it
very stressful?
Really?
It's if you're not paying for one of the like big packages that can be like hundreds of thousands of dollars, they kind of treat you like a second class citizen. Like I asked, like they had this thing where they can do like projection animation onto a cake, and I saw it on YouTube on their channel. And I said, hey, can I get that for my wedding? And they're like, oh no, for what you're getting, we don't think you would like that. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm asking you, how much is, can I get it? And they're like, oh no, it's not available for the package. We just don't think people who get this package would. So we went through like several different wedding planners, and the experience was less than stellar for what you'd expect from Disney. But in the end, it was worth it for the pictures.
Yeah. Oh, that's a shame. Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that. Oh, wow.
No. I don't regret it in the end. It was just the planning process and whatnot was really stressful. So
yeah.
But we got really great pictures, and that's what it's all about. I think.
That's absolutely. What about a Grail piece? Is there a Grail piece that you would like in your collection? And when I say Grail piece, I don't necessarily mean to say it's going to be the most expensive thing. It might be something that you've seen in the store that you've not seen for a long time. You didn't get it. So, go on in.
Yeah, no, it happens to be expensive, but there are actually a couple, if you don't mind me bringing it up.
Yeah, no, please do.
So there was a failed HasLab for Cookie Monster. I wish they would have made something like that, but for Fozzie Bear. I'm a huge Muppets fan as well, so it would have been really cool to have like a super well articulated giant like stuffed Fozzie Bear. Or like a proper like puppet of Fozzie. That would be really cool to actually have a puppet. But I didn't get the sail barge, so the katana would be really cool. So I'm not sure if Hasbro will open that up again. But the really big thing my wife said she'd leave me instantly if I ever chose to buy this, but from that company Regal Robot, who actually makes like I'm sitting in the Emperor's throne is like
I've seen that
as my desk
awesome,
chair.
Man.
Yeah, oh, I love this thing. But they make a life-size Chewbacca.
Oh wow,
that's like $20,000. Okay. I want that in my house, but my wife will not have that. So that I'll be looking at their website like from time to time, wishing that was in my basement.
I mean, it's not like something you just put in a corner somewhere and just keep it out of the way, is it? I mean, it's
I could put it in my like close to my front door in the window, so like everyone walking by my house just has Chewbacca staring at them.
Oh wow. Oh, that is cool. That is cool.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So yeah, maybe someday if ever hit it big, but yeah, probably the big Regal Robot Chewbacca.
Yeah. Going back to the Muppets, I mean, I didn't realize that they'd done a HasLab. When was this?
No, they didn't. So they didn't. So what I was getting at was they did the one for the Cookie Monster for Sesame Street, but the skeleton of that like could have been applied to other things like the Muppets. And if they if the stars align from a licensing perspective, if someone ever made something like that, like a super articulated big stuffed Fozzie Bear, I'd be all over that. Yeah.
So are you into your puppetry then? Do you like puppetry?
I love watching it. I'm not talented in any shape or form artistically.
No, I mean I don't mean like actually like doing it like like being a puppeteer or anything like that. But you know, does it interest you how they do it, the puppetry and stuff?
Oh yeah, I love. I've gone as far as watching like I've watched like documentaries on Jim Henson and whatnot online, and yeah, the Muppets are up there in terms of things I like. In fact,
I mean they're very cool. Oh,
I've got a little Fozzie Bear right here sitting next to my laptop. Yeah,
cool.
One of my dogs is named Fozzie as well.
Awesome. Yeah. So is it just the Muppets you like then, or do you like other things like, you know, go as far as the Dark Crystal,
Labyrinth? Oh, I love those as well. Yeah. It's a shame. I don't think Labyrinth is available anywhere to stream, and I don't think I have it on physical media. I've been wanting to watch that again. But yeah, I all that kind of stuff. It's really interesting what you can do with that art form and everything that goes into it. It takes a lot of arm strength too.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I've got to say, I love watching documentaries and like the old way they do movies and stuff like that with the models, the stop motion, what they did with the Rancor for Return of the Jedi. Incredible. I mean, you're watching that film when you first see it as a kid. Who would have thought that was like a 6-inch
job
puppet, or you know, like a puppet? It's just incredible what they've done with that to make it look so realistic.
And to think that it's, you know, there's a whole career that you can make out of producing that kind of stuff. It would have been a dream to have worked with like ILM. When I was a kid and watching like behind the scenes stuff, I wanted to work with Dennis Muren and Phil Tippett as a kid. Those guys were my idols, and it was really cool to see them at Celebration in Anaheim when they were promoting the what was it called? Light and Magic documentary. That was really cool to sit in that round table or the discussion.
I mean, they're such talented guys, aren't they? I mean, you know, I mean, I'd watched the documentary Empire of Dreams. How Star Wars ever managed to get up and going in the first place is just unbelievable. What George Lucas went through, he had that vision, he stuck by it. He got people to buy into it as well. I'm not sure they did to start with, but you know, those, you know, John Dykstra, then you had all the others and stuff like that, Ben Burt for the sound design, just absolute quality, and they were absolute legends in their field, weren't they? And I feel it's a shame because you don't see too much of that anymore, because it's all pretty much done on computer now, isn't it?
Well, not just that, but you don't see original ideas coming out of Hollywood. It's all remakes and rehashing old existing IP. You don't see new ideas too much. Although there was that one movie that came out last year that was really good, from the guy who did Rogue One, The Creator,
right.
by Gareth Edwards.
Okay.
That was really good.
Okay.
So in general, like whether it's people aren't coming up with new innovative concepts and whatnot, or it's just Hollywood isn't green lighting and bankrolling new ideas because they think, oh, we just want to see a new live action remake of whatever Disney animated movie or whatever. It's different times.
Shame. Absolute shame. Well, I've got 3 questions left. We'll come to the top of the hour, so we'll crack on. Would you ever consider starting up your own channel?
Maybe. My work schedule is like pretty intense, and I'd love to be able to do it and have these types of conversations, but I'm not really creative in coming up with content to produce, right? So I feel like my niche is being that guy who just pops up and shows up and hangs out with other people.
Pops up on a quiz and does quite well at it. Yeah.
Sorry about that, but
no, I wasn't for hiding it with nothing, so don't worry about that.
But yeah, no, it'd be cool to have like a channel to do similar things and talk to like-minded collectors and people interested in the same things, whether it's like sports or pop culture in general. But it's I'm sure I don't need to tell you, it takes effort to put on all that kind of stuff, and it's just time I don't.
It does. Yeah, it does. It's time consuming. So
between keeping up with all the content I watch and read and whatnot, and being a young dad, it's not easy.
Yeah, fair enough. What gives you that toy collecting buzz?
I think just being able to walk around in my basement and see something that younger me would have just been astounded by seeing in his room as a kid. I couldn't picture having all this kind of stuff, and I tell my wife to blame my parents for my collecting habits, because I didn't have all this kind of stuff as a kid. So I wanted all this stuff, but now I have some money and I can do what I want with it, and I tend to spend it on plastic. So
fair enough. I mean, you've got a fantastic collection. I will say that. I mean, I'm loving the the helmets that you got behind you, and the Marvel stuff. I'm liking your Black Series helmets, the lightsabers. Just who didn't want a lightsaber as a kid? I mean, how awesome would that have been if we would have been back in the day and we had something like that as a kid,
instead of the original one, which was just like a balloon with a flashlight, right?
Yeah,
and the balloon wasn't included or whatever. I think.
It's just incredible. Okay, I've got the last question for you then. What does your collection mean to you?
I think, to me, it's easy to say, but I can't say everything because that would be unfair to my wife and daughter. But it means a lot. For me, it's a connection to my childhood, and I maybe didn't have the best or most optimal childhood possible. It could have been worse, but I moved around a lot as a kid, and couldn't keep the same group of friends as a result and whatnot, and that was problematic. So to have like things that represent all the stuff I loved as a kid and kind of keep me connected to the things that like brought me happiness back then, I think for me that that connection back to Eric from the 90s is what my collection means to me.
Awesome. And it's also a road forward as well, isn't it, with your daughter, hoping that she'll like stuff like that. How cool.
I'm looking forward to when we can really start exposing her to more content. Actually, the first thing we did when she was born was watch A New Hope. The night she was born, the first thing we did as a family, brought out the iPad. Like, she wasn't really watching, but I played that whole thing start to finish. That was whether she likes it or not, the first thing she did as a human was watch A New Hope. Yeah.
So, I mean, does your wife like the films then? Does she like the films?
Yeah, she's more into the movies and TV than the collecting aspect, or and she won't read the comics or read the books. I've tried to get her to do that, and she'll watch me play some of the video games and whatnot, Fallen Order and Survivor, but she wouldn't do it herself. Yeah.
You don't think she has the old crafty old read when you're not around? She's making sure you're not around and she's have a quick. No?
I'd be all in favor of that if she did that, but I doubt that's happening.
Fair enough. Yeah. Fair enough. Eric, my friend, that has come to the end of the conversation. It's been awesome chatting to you, mates. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks for having me.
No, it's been a pleasure. Where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, most platforms, just Sir Eric Brown. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads, and I'm on Facebook, but I don't really use that much. But
sorry,
I don't really use Instagram.
What else?
Threads.
Threads. Oh, crikey.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't really use much. I'm probably on Twitter most, but yeah. Sir Eric Brown.
Okay. Yeah. Well, what I'll do then is I'll put a link to your social media platforms in the description below for this video. Like I said, mate, it has been absolutely awesome chatting to you, mate. This hour never does seem long enough. But yeah, awesome stuff. Really do appreciate you taking part. Thank you, my friend.
Yeah, no, thanks again. It's a pleasure.
Not a problem. For those of you that say to the end, a massive thank you. Really do appreciate you taking the time to watch these episodes in this series. This has been Sir Eric Brown, an absolute star. Thank you very much. Take care, stay safe, and we shall see you in the next video. Bye for now.